Well, good morning to all of you and welcome. Thank you for coming out today. I'm Steve Gerber and I'm the Chief Development Officer here at Sakoa Aging and In-Home Solutions. And again, on behalf of Sakoa, I'd like to welcome you. This is our first Envision Lecture of 2022, so thanks. So whether you're new, some of you might be new to this lecture series, or perhaps you're a new acquaintance of Sakoa, or maybe some of you have been coming to this for decades or years. It's wonderful to meet all of you today. I want to say too, I'm also a newbie. I'm not a rookie, but I'm a newbie. Having started in my role here on March the 1st, so less than 2 months ago on the job, and most recently I served as the Executive Director of Development at Grace College and Seminary in Winona Lake, Indiana. And I am delighted to be a part of this great organization. I believe, and I've said this often, that there's an intrinsic dignity in helping people that is exciting, and being able to build support for quality of life for all people along the life spectrum says a lot about Central Indiana and the Central Indiana community. And your presence here obviously tells me something about your commitment to this community also. The Envision Lecture Series is designed to bring to the forefront issues and trends that impact the health and quality of life of older adults, those of any age with a disability, and their family caregivers. Envision presenters are all outstanding leaders in their respective fields, and today is no exception. So Tarek Brown is the President and CEO of CICOA, Aging and In-Home Solutions. Tarek joined Sakoa, imagine, in January of 2020, just months before the pandemic disrupted the world. So although he has been here for over 2 years, he may be new to you as well. Before joining Sakoa, Tarek served as the Chief Operating Officer for Senior Services Incorporated in Kalamazoo, Michigan. His career started in the U.S. Army, and then he became a successful owner-operator for a multi-carrier wireless retail company. Inspired by his family and upbringing, he made the switch to the nonprofit world and has been using his many talents to bring about transformational change across the organization on behalf of the vulnerable population that we serve. In today's presentation, Tarek will share findings from the 2021 CASOA, the Community Assessment Survey for older adults. Following the presentation, we'll have a few minutes for some Q&A, and I'll come back up immediately after Tarek is done, and we will do a Q&A time. So I invite you to make some notes along the way, and at the end, Tarek will address as many questions as he can in the remaining time. So now, please give your attention to Mr. Tarek Brown.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see. And as Steve said, thank you all for being here with us today. It's great to see faces in the room, and it's also great for individuals who are able to join us virtually. To better understand the strengths and challenges of older adults across Indiana, the Indiana Association of Area Agencies on Aging, affectionately known as I4A, and the state's Division on Aging engaged POLCO to administer its third iteration of the Community Assessment Survey for Older Adults, also known as CASOA. The survey was conducted previously in 2013 to gain a baseline, and then again in 2017. Data in this report is focused specifically on older adults in Sakoa's service area, which encompasses Marion County and the 7 donut counties that surround it. Our goal for today is to look at the results of the survey and to start a conversation. As a convener, we hope to further these discussions with thought leaders, public officials, and others to ensure that the needs of older adults are considered not only within the AAA network, but also with other community partners. The survey provides a statistically valid report of the strengths and needs of older adults according to older adults themselves. This report is intended to enable local governments, community-based organizations, the private sector, and other community members to understand the needs and predict more accurately the services and resources required to serve our aging population. Multiple mailed contacts gave each household more than one prompt to participate, either online or in a mailed hard copy survey packet. A total of 16,360 older adult households were randomly selected to receive this survey. 944 of them completed the surveys and returned them. This provided an overall response rate of 5.87% and a margin of error plus or minus 3.19% around any given percent and 1 point around any given average rating for the livability scores. Since this was the third implementation of the Sakoa survey, the 2021 results are presented along with the trend data from the 2017 survey when available. The survey instrument was changed slightly from the prior two surveys, so not all questions answered can be compared historically. For example, there is a new section on equity and inclusivity and more questions around caregiving. But in general, differences from past survey results can be considered statistically significant if they are 6 percentage points or greater than any previous result. As noted, the goals are to have the immediate benefit of helping us plan for services, the intermediate benefit of helping improve programs and policies, and the long-term benefit of supporting a community that is healthier and flourishing. Aspects of livability are explored within 6 community dimensions. There's community design, which focuses on housing, mobility, and land use, employment and finances, equity and inclusivity, health and wellness, and in that area, it's safety, physical health, mental health, healthcare and independent living, information and assistance, and productive activities. One additional dimension, overall community quality, summarizes the others as index scores and provides an overall picture of Central Indiana as a livable community for older adults. Participating households with residents 60 years or older were selected at random. The last page of the survey included demographic questions about the survey respondents. So we can see here on this slide that 46% have lived in their communities for over 20 years, that 50% live in a single family home, 40% own their home free and clear, 26% had household incomes less than $25,000. 68% are fully retired, 29% working full or part-time, and 2% unemployed and looking for paid work. As I think about that last section, I go 68% fully retired. We know people are living much longer than they ever had before. That should be a trigger in our minds to be thinking about retirement savings may not carry an individual as far as it may have in the past. And so that we should be thinking about how do we address that? How do we combat that when the time comes? The racial demographics, 86% were white, 11% black, 1% American Indian or Alaska Native, 2% race not listed, and 1% of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. And the age groups, you had 26% in that range of 60 to 64, 44% of respondents were 65 to 74, and 29% age 75 and older. And finally, gender. 56% female, 44% male. Sexual orientation, 96% identify heterosexual, 1% lesbian gay, 0% bisexual, and 2% identify another way. Throughout this report, you will see icons utilized to denote the trends and benchmarks from prior surveys. And so on this screen here represents that legend. I'll leave that up for just a second so you can wrap your minds around what you're going to see before we move on. Okay. So let's dive in. Overall community quality examines how older residents view the community, how connected they are to the community. Measuring community quality for older adults starts with assessing the quality of those who live there and ensuring that the community is attractive, accessible, and welcoming to all. It also encompasses how likely older adults are to recommend and remain in their communities. The first measure I want to draw your attention to, though, is not about the community, but rather about the individual's perception of their personal quality of life. About 8 in 10 older residents surveyed rated their personal quality of life as excellent or good, which is great news. And it's very similar to the 2017 results of the same question. If we look more closely by county, we find that Hendricks County residents scored their personal quality of life the highest at 95%, with Marion County scoring the lowest at 71%. However, I will remind you that 7 in 10 older adults in Marion County rated their personal quality of life as excellent or good. Now let's look at community quality of life. Items on the survey related to this topic are shown here. Because Sakoa does not have prior measurements for certain characteristics, these don't have trend values. But as you can see here, 82% of the older respondents scored their communities positively as a place to live. Just below that, at 80%, said they would recommend their specific neighborhoods as a place to live. The overall quality of life score in the community was rated as excellent or good by 3/4 of respondents, and about 2/3 of respondents provided assessments of excellent or good for their communities as a place to live. If we break down the responses to overall quality of life in your community, we see here again, as in the personal quality of life score, that Hendricks County received the highest marks and Marion the lowest. Measuring community livability for older adults starts with assessing the quality of those who live there and also ensuring that the community is attractive, accessible, and welcoming to all. About 3/4 of the older respondents scored their communities positively as a place to live and retire. And the same number would recommend their communities to others and plan to remain there throughout their lifetime. If you look at the actual survey questions related to the measure of place to live and retire, you will see the trend is consistent with past results from 2013 and 2017 surveys and on par compared to national benchmarks. Comparing responses by county, we see 90% of respondents in Hendricks County rated their community positively as a place to live and retire, while Marion County got the lowest response with 67% positive. The questions of remaining in and recommending the community, we see that although 76% said they intend to remain in their community throughout retirement, this is in fact trending down from 2017 and 2013 results, which both came in at 85%, right? Again, I say that should be a light bulb moment for us, right? If that trend is starting to go backwards, that should spark something in us to want to creatively respond to that, to help move those numbers up closer to that 85% again. And in this category, we find that 89% of respondents in Johnson County recommend their community to others and plan to remain in the community throughout their retirement. Marion County again got the lowest response with 69% approval rating. Communities that assist older adults to remain or become active community participants must provide the requisite opportunities for recreation, transportation, culture, education, communication, social connection, spiritual enrichment, and health care. Because every community is different, each must identify what its older adults value most and what the community offers to its residents. Survey respondents were asked to rate a number of aspects of the community which were converted to an average scale of 0, which is the lowest rating, or poor, to 100, highest rating, excellent, and then combined to provide one overall rating, an index, for each of the 6 dimensions of community readiness. These ratings are not to be understood like ratings from tests that we took at school, because they are summaries of several questions that range from 0 as poor, 33 as fair, 66 as good, and 100 as excellent. For example, a score of 58 in school would have been a failing score on a test, right? But in this scenario, a score of 58 should be interpreted as closer to good than to fair, which is the midpoint of the scale, so 50 representing equal distance between good and fair. You will see on the far right that older residents felt that the area of overall community quality met their needs. Community information was rated the least favorably and received the lowest average rating. Employment and finances were also areas that rated less favorably than other measures. Ratings of each of the dimensions of community readiness remained somewhat stable between 2017 and 2013. But you'll see here a significant decline in the employment and finances area, which likely was impacted by the pandemic. Again, health and wellness is somewhat stable, but there are drops in information and assistance and productive activities, also likely impacted by COVID-19. During the pandemic, older adults were looking for additional resources, and they were less able to get out of the home and engaged in their community settings. Livable communities, which include those with mixed-use neighborhoods, higher density development, increased connections, shared community spaces, and more human-scale design, will become a necessity for communities to age successfully. Communities that have planned and been designed for older adults tend to emphasize access, helping to facilitate movement and participation. Community design is comprised of housing, land use, and mobility. When considering aspects of housing, affordability and variety, and community features of new urbanism where people can live close to places where they eat, shop, worship, work, and receive services, relatively lower scores were given by older adults compared to many other items on the survey. Specific questions under housing that were rated low. You will note that 31% of respondents reported having problems finding suitable housing compared to 20% in 2017. Many more also indicated that they had difficulty maintaining in their own homes. When questions were posed as positive responses rather than as areas of need, only 39% of respondents gave a positive score to the availability of affordable, quality housing in their communities. And about 1/3 gave excellent or good ratings to the availability of accessible housing. Comparing the responses by county, we see that Hendricks County had the highest rating for having excellent or good, and Morgan County came in lowest at 23%. Under topics related to land use, you will note in the third row that only 39% had a positive response to there being public places where people could spend time, which is well below the national benchmarks. In the last row, only 36% gave excellent or good ratings to the availability of mixed-use neighborhoods where individuals can eat, shop, work, worship, or access services in those neighborhoods. This is of particular importance to older adults who may not have the ability to drive, so they need to have walkable neighborhoods to access a grocery store or other needed services. At the county level, Hamilton County had the highest positive response to the questions around land use at 68%, and Shelby came in the lowest at 37%. Under mobility, 42% of respondents say they have problems accessing safe and affordable transportation, which is trending down and also below national benchmarks. Again, put that in the back of your mind, right? Because that's one of those additional areas that we must go to work on to improve collectively. About 5 in 10 respondents rated the overall quality of the transportation system, auto, bicycle, foot or bus, in their communities as excellent or good, which is below the national benchmark. Ease of travel by car was considered excellent or good by 80% of respondents, while ease of travel by walking was considered excellent or good by only 56% of respondents. Only 18% said ease of travel by public transportation was excellent or good, which also was trending down and below national benchmarks. Mobility scores by county showed Hancock County coming in at the highest at 64%, reporting excellent or good, and Morgan County received only 43% approval. Let's talk about employment and finances. The life expectancy for those born between 1940 and 1960 has increased dramatically due to advances in healthcare and lifestyle changes. While this is a very positive trend overall, It also highlights both the importance of communities providing employment opportunities for older adults and the need for older adults to plan well for their longer retirement years. Employment opportunities for older adults, quality and variety, received low ratings, below 30%. A little more than half reported their financial situation was good. And because Sakoa doesn't have prior livability scores for finances, trends aren't available. If we look at employment needs, about half said they have problems building skills for paid or unpaid work, which is trending down from 2017 and also falls below national benchmarks. About 1/3 reported problems finding work in retirement. And the quality of employment opportunities also was found to be lacking at 29% excellent or good, which also has trended down from 2017. By county, we see by far the greatest challenge reported in Morgan County. In the financial needs questions, 42% report having difficulty meeting daily expenses. About 1/3 indicated they have some difficulty paying property taxes, which is trending negatively. Despite these needs, 69% hold a positive impression of the overall economic health of their communities. And if we compare responses by county, we see Morgan County again had the lowest scores around financial health. A community is often greater than the sum of its parts. Having a sense of community entails not only a sense of membership and belonging, but also feelings of equity and trust in the other members of their communities. Inclusivity refers to a cultural and environmental feeling of belonging, creating places in which any individual or group can be and feel welcomed, respected, supported, and valued increases the overall livability in communities. As mentioned previously, this is a new measure, so we don't have trend data to compare with for all these measures. Here are the livability scores, so let's seek to understand this better. Remember, these are not comparable to test scores, so 49% score for equity is closer to an average score rather than a failing score. 0 as poor, 33 as fair, 66 as good, and 100 as excellent. 20% of respondents said they feel discriminated against because of age. Roughly half said their community shows acceptance of older residents of diverse backgrounds. Less than half of respondents said that older adults are valued in the community. Hendricks County had the highest scores in this area, while Boone County had the lowest scores in the equity category. Looking at the questions under inclusivity, we see that about 1/3 of residents have experienced problems feeling like they don't fit in, feeling lonely, or feeling like they don't have adequate social supports they can rely on. Higher scores were given for a sense of community, which is trending up, and neighborliness. I get one, okay? That's my one, all right? In this measure, Hendricks County again scored the highest, with Marion coming in lowest. Of all the attributes of aging, health poses the greatest risk and the biggest opportunity for communities to ensure the independence and contributions of their aging populations. Health and wellness, for the purposes of this study, included not only physical and mental health, but also issues of safety, independent living, and health care. The highest marks in health and wellness went to safety. We also see that about 6 in 10 older residents in the region rated health care and their overall physical health as good. Lowest marks were given in the mental health area. Again, this may have been impacted by COVID-19. Under healthcare needs, we see 3 measures trending down from 2017. Finding affordable health insurance was reported as a problem by 41% of respondents. Getting health care you need was a problem for 30% of the respondents, and getting oral health care at 30% was trending negatively. 34% have a problem affording their medications, and 26% lack the vision care they need. On the plus side, community opportunities for preventive health services were reported positively by 2/3 of residents. Johnson and Shelby counties represent the highest and lowest scored for health care in the region. Only 45% of respondents said the availability of long-term care options was good. Options for adult day services was even lower at 30%. 5% of respondents said they had spent some time in a care facility in the past year. Johnson and Shelby are the highs and lows again on this measure. Looking at mental health needs, we see 44% are dealing with depression or grief, while 1/3 report experiencing confusion or forgetfulness. Only 1/3 feel like they have access to affordable, quality mental health care. Although, once again, we see the vast majority feel their overall mental health is excellent or good. Johnson and Shelby counties, again, represented the highs and lows on this measure. On the subject of physical health, 60% reported having problems with health and staying physically fit. About 1/3 said they experience problems with falling, which is on par with the national averages. And 20%, or 1 in 5, expressed some food insecurity about having enough to eat, which also is on par with national benchmarks. Ratings for overall health and wellness opportunities were strong. Opportunities for fitness and affordable quality food, however, have both trended down. 24% said they had spent time in a hospital over the past 12 months. About 71% reported their personal physical health at excellent or good. Comparing by county, we can see that Hamilton County reported the highest scores for physical health and Morgan the lowest. Around the topic of safety, 24% reported having been a victim of a fraud or scam, and 15% the victim of a crime. 8% report having experience with the problem with physical or emotional abuse. but overall, 71% report feeling safe in their communities. Hendricks County rated the highest for safety, with Marion County coming in the lowest on this measure. The Older Adult Service Network, while strong, is under-resourced and unable to single-handedly meet the needs of the continuously growing population of older adults. Providing useful and well-designed programs, as well as informing residents about other assistance resources, is an important way that we can help residents successfully age in place. Aging in place will be a very specific and important thing as the state is moving into a managed care environment with home and community-based services. And their primary desire is to have more individuals aging in place than in an institutional setting. So that will be very, very important driver for us moving down this journey, this road together. On community livability scores, as noted previously, livability scores for information and assistance were among the lowest and trending down from 2017. 31% reported excellent or good scores for having access to information about available services. The quality of overall services provided to older adults in the region were rated as excellent or good by 43% of respondents. About half of survey respondents reported being somewhat informed or very informed about public programs. About 2/3 said they struggle with knowing what services are available to older adults. The availability of information about resources for older adults and financial or legal planning services was rated positively by fewer than 4 in 10 older residents, which also was trending down from past surveys. However, both remained in line with national benchmarks. 57% said they felt at least somewhat informed. Although we do not have a trend line for this from past CASOA surveys, we do know from other studies that as boomers age into the older adult demographic, the number who have access to the internet from a computer or cell phone and who use them regularly is steadily rising. Hendricks and Morgan County scored highest and lowest in the information about services category. Under the topic of older adult services, less than 43% rated their communities positively. Again, Hendricks was the highest and Morgan County scored the lowest. Productive activities outside of work, such as volunteerism and social activity, do promote quality of life and contribute to active aging. This domain examines the extent of older adults' participation in social and leisure programs and their time spent attending or viewing civic meetings, volunteering, or providing help to others. Because data for caregiving is informational and not evaluative, no livability score is calculated. In terms of civil engagement and social engagement, we scored in the average range. Among older adults who are caring for a family member or friend, we see that about 1 in 5 adults feel some burden around caregiving. About 1/3 of caregivers are caring for someone over the age of 55, 21% are caregivers of children, and 17% are providing care to a young adult between the ages of 18 and 54. Under the topic of civic engagement, 45% express having problems with feeling like their voice is heard, which is trending up. The number of folks feeling like they have opportunities to volunteer or to participate in community matters is declining. And this also may be related to COVID precautions. Half feel they are at least somewhat informed about volunteer opportunities, which is trending up. 84% indicated that they voted in the most recent election, and 1 in 4 have either attended a local public meeting or watched one online or on television. In terms of civic engagement, Hancock scored the highest on this measure, with Morgan County again scoring the lowest. 45% of older adult respondents said they experienced some boredom. In terms of social engagement opportunities, religious activities scored the highest, but opportunities for recreation, social activities, and personal enrichment all trended down, and recreation fell below the national benchmarks. Fortunately, people still feel connected with friends, family, and their neighbors. Hamilton County appears to have the highest percentage of social engagement activities, while Morgan County again is in last place. Productive behavior is any activity, paid or unpaid, that generates goods or services of economic value. Productive activities include many types of paid and unpaid work, as well as services provided to friends, family, or neighbors. Older adults make significant contributions, paid and unpaid, to the communities in which they live. In addition to their paid work, older adults contribute to the economy through volunteering, providing informal help to family and friends, and caregiving. The contribution older adults make through employment, volunteerism, and caregiving was calculated for all older adults living in Sakoa Aging and In-Home Solutions region. It is estimated that older adult residents contribute $5.4 billion annually to their community through paid and unpaid work. The individual survey questions about specific problems faced by older community members were summarized into 17 larger categories to provide a broad picture of older resident needs in central Indiana. Typically, it is understood that self-reported needs of older adults represents a minimum level, a conservative estimate because respondents have a strong desire to feel and appear self-reliant. The expression of need also is reduced by the silent voice of some older adults who, no matter how sensitive the attempt, are too frail to participate in any survey. So those who have expressed need, the figures shown here indicate the areas of greatest need with the percent of respondents who reported feeling that this is a problem for them. And the highest reporting needs, and these really should not be a significant surprise to any of us here in the room or, tuning in virtually, but housing was the highest reported need at 45%, physical health at 43%, information on older adult services at 41%, healthcare at 35%, mental health at 32%, mobility, which does include transportation, at 28%, finances at 27%, and inclusivity at 23%. We'll leave that up. I see some pens, so I'll be respectful and leave that up so you can get those jotted down. Okay. If we can take a deeper dive on the subject of housing, we see that 54% of the older adults surveyed in Marion County said they had experienced housing needs slightly higher than the statewide average of 47%. It's an issue that exists in every county throughout our state. The issue is multifaceted. We don't have enough available, affordable housing for people 60 and older. Only 39% said the availability of affordable, quality housing was good or excellent, which is trending down from both the 2013 and 2017 CASOA results. 65% said doing heavy or intense housework is problematic. 57% said maintaining their home is problematic. People who have lived in their homes for many years are finding it harder to keep up with simple maintenance they used to do themselves. Things like getting appliances fixed or replaced when they wear out, or even changing the furnace filter. This is trending down and falls below the national benchmarks. 45% said they have difficulty maintaining their yards. 31% said finding housing to suit their needs is problematic. This is also a worsening trend since 2013 and 2017. 31% said they have difficulty having enough money to pay property taxes. So let's summarize a few things here at the end. To better provide context to the survey data, resident responses for the region were compared to POLCO's national benchmark database of older adult opinions. Of the 51 assessments of community livability compared to the benchmark database, the region scored on par for 45 items. For no items did this region score above benchmark comparisons, while 6 items were below benchmark comparisons. The COVID-19 pandemic was disruptive to many areas of community livability and resulted in profound impacts on many older adult lives around the world, nation and in communities throughout Indiana. It is important to keep these disruptions in mind while comparing trends from 2017 with present. Of the 42 assessments of community livability that could be compared over time, which is questions that were asked on both the 2017 and the current survey instruments, the ratings were similar for 18 items. Ratings improved since 2017 for 1 item, sense of community in your community. There were 14 areas of community livability showing a decline in quality ratings from 2017, most relating to activities and opportunities
that were impacted by the pandemic. Overall services provided to older adults, ease of travel by public transportation, quality of employment opportunities, availability of affordable quality food, availability on information about resources available for older adults, availability of financial or legal planning services, recreation activities such as games, arts, library services, fitness opportunities, wellness classes, exercise classes, opportunities to participate in community matters, opportunities to volunteer, opportunities to enroll in skill building or personal enrichment classes, opportunities to attend social events or activities, and valuing older adults in your community. When comparing residents' self-reported challenges, of the 35 items to compare, 25 were similar in magnitude to 2017. Fewer challenges were reported for 2 items, meaning that results are more favorable in those areas. Feeling like your voice is heard in the community, and the other, feeling financially burdened by providing care for another person. There were 8 areas where older residents reported less favorably compared to 2017, and those are on the slide for you. And it deals with money to pay property taxes, housing that suits an individual's needs, maintaining that home, safe and affordable transportation availability, building skills for paid and unpaid work, finding affordable health insurance, getting the health care that individuals need, and getting the oral health care that they need. So as I always like to say, we got to get to work, right? Call to action, get to work. So we have a lot of work to do. Sakoa is going to use this information to advocate for change, but we recognize that the challenges faced by older adults are bigger than any one organization alone. So we need your help. Everyone in the room, everyone tuning in virtually, we need your help. Seniors love their communities across Central Indiana. That's one of the positives of this survey. The majority want to remain in their communities throughout retirement, and most gave high marks to their quality of life. I'm passionate about making sure that they get their wish and can remain living with the greatest possible independence, dignity, and quality of life. Or as I like to say, we work really hard to make the dream of aging in place a reality, one older adult at a time. So we're at that point where we are ready to take some questions, and I thank all of you for joining us today. Let the questions come. I don't know that it's broken out like that, Beth. That I may have to do a little digging to get you an answer to that question. Dana, do you know?
Yeah, so
okay.
If you all of these results and all of the survey results for all of Indiana, Central Indiana, and by county are available on Sakoa's website and under news and events, research, CASOA. And so if you look at the events, at the results by county, you can see the individual metrics for each county there. I aggregated those for this presentation, but they are separate by county on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Make sure you repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, talking about information about services, where I think there was
Yeah. So the question has to do with the low ratings for information and assistance. What services are available for older adults? And she's asking, is there a correlation between the lack of acts or lack of knowledge of what's available? Is there a correlation to funding for those particular services? Is that your question? Yeah. I would answer it this way. I would say not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that funding doesn't play a role in that. I think with information and referral, what people oftentimes, and I remember when I started in the not-for-profit sector in 2012, right? I started in, coming out of the for-profit world, starting in a not-for-profit organization. And I remember information and referral being, information and assistance being kind of that catalyst, the driver. And I asked the CEO there, I said, Bob, why don't we advertise? What's the deal here, right? And he said it as plainly as possible. He said, Tarek, you got to remember, most of the funding that they were receiving at that time, it had a cap on it, right? It was either state or federal resources. And so his approach was, if we advertise, the floodgates open, right? So we want people to know that there are things available, but how do you attack and approach a situation where you exhaust your funding long before it renews again the following fiscal year? So I think there may be some of that as part of it. Maybe organizations don't think about it that way. For us, I think we have to make sure we're present, right, and available in communities so that individuals do know all of the resources that are available for them, so that we can try and help, again, extend that independent living situation for as long as possible.
Sorry. Question that came in the video. I'll just read it.
Okay.
How can we make individuals more aware? I think this goes along with that question also. How can we make individuals more aware of resources available as they age?
So how can we make individuals more aware of resources available as they age? I think it's a very multi-pronged approach. I think it's one that involves community centers, faith-based organizations, schools, academia. There are many different opportunities and connections and partnerships that can be created, right? And it's simply sitting down and having a conversation. Myself and our faith-based coordinator, Denise Jones-Harrington, we do a lot of work in communities, in faith-based congregations, because we know that everyone can't come to us. And so at some point, you've got to pivot your thought process to go to them. You need to be in those churches. You need to provide those community centers, partners that are part of your, I'll call it network. You need to provide them with as many resources, manuals, materials, printed materials that make it easy for individuals to connect with you. And so it's not one approach or one strategy that's going to change this. It is multi-pronged, and it will require, as I always say, the entire village, the entire community. Yeah, Kelsey.
For the caregiver information, did you say, was that specific to the 944 respondents indicating that they themselves were caregivers, and like the breakdown of who they were providing care for, that was representative of that, or was it in the household there was another caregiver that provided that feedback?
No, it was for them. Yeah, for the individual.
So those individuals were themselves caregivers.
Correct. That's correct.
And did it say how many, like what percentage of the total identified as being caregivers?
I don't know. Let me go back to that section.
I can look at that. I just was
Yeah, I don't know without going back and pulling that slide. The caregiver piece is a really, really important one though, because as I said at the beginning, people are living much longer than they have in prior decades. Family caregiving is not going to decline. It's going to continue to scale. And so, you know, while family caregiving, there may not be a ton of resources available to help eliminate or reduce that stress or burden that they're going through, should be in our minds, we should be thinking about what additional kinds of supports can we bring to the table to help further reduce the caregiver's stress level so that they don't feel burned out.
With respect to the caregivers, there was one statistic that said basically that the caregivers were feeling less financially burdened with training. Do you think that has something to do with the availability of people working at home, and so they're able to keep their job, but they're also able to take care of a family member at the same time?
Yeah, so the question has to deal with caregivers not feeling financially burdened and wanting to know, is there maybe a correlation with individuals being able to work at home, having more flexibility? I would probably answer that question as, yeah, most likely. I find that, you know, if through COVID, we've all kind of shifted how we do our work. Many folks are working more remotely. And so I would expect that that could have something to do with the financial piece being more solid or stable than what it might have been in past surveys. Go ahead.
Well, I have an observation and a question. My observation is that when you talk about the trends that were affected by the pandemic, my feeling is that a lot of those trends that were going down because of the pandemic really just highlighted those trends. And then my question is about the ease of living. I think it was like 30-something% about living in communities where there's affordable housing, being able to get to a grocery store, church, and all those services in one neighborhood. Does Sakoa and the Division of Aging have a plan to work with legislators to really kind of help use some legislation to plan that? Because a lot of developers go into certain neighborhoods and they just gentrify the neighborhood and then they forget about the aging population, the people that are in middle class and all of that. So is there a plan to really, you know, start working with that?
So great comment and an even better question. So the comment had to do, well, let's focus on the question because that's the most important. So comment had to do with with COVID-19 maybe highlighting more of some of the results of the survey. And the question has to do more with housing and developers and, you know, ensuring that there's a plan to make sure that developers aren't coming in, buying property, you know, going through gentrification and keeping certain populations out of a living scenario. Is that the question? Yeah. So the answer to that is, yeah, there's always going to be advocacy. It's interesting you bring this point up because over the past couple of months, I have been talking with several partners of ours about some things that I've become aware of with independent senior living complexes where individuals are receiving rent increase notifications from their property managers. You have two individuals who live in a same square footage apartments, same building. One individual's increase is 2%, another one is 5%. Just, it doesn't make sense. So I started raising some red flags, and that has set up a meeting with myself and Deputy Mayor Thomas on the 5th of May. So that's the reason that I want to talk to her. You are correct that, you know, we've got to make sure that we're advocating, that we're leveraging our relationships with elected officials to advocate for the right kinds of changes that don't have an adverse impact on our older adults. And I've come to find out that this scenario is more common than I would have even thought it was. Yes, Beth.
My question expands on that. I was wondering what action plans Sakoa already has in place to take the CASOA survey information to the county and city planners, and who else is this information being taken to so the right actions can be addressed in the counties?
Great question, Beth. So the question has to do with how will Sakoa leverage this survey data to help make a better path forward in our 8-county region? And the answer is that Dana is going to be scheduling my road show, right? So that's what comes next, right? Tarek gets to go on a road show to sit down with many of our county representatives, some of which sit on our Sakoa Advisory Council, and it's to really have deep discussions and conversations about the climate, about what we see in these results, and about making sure people don't get left behind. Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, this housing thing, I'm going to stay here for a minute. If there is not a solution, I guarantee you that these individuals who are above the line to qualify for subsidized housing, that there will be a new homeless population. And that new homeless population will be our treasured older adults, and we just can't have that. So, you know, the meetings, the discussions, the conversations, they'll be ongoing, Beth. I am not going to rest with this one until we start to see some real change. That change, I can't wait on state legislators. I got to start beating the streets locally, right? So if we can start local and really start having some great conversations, keep the voices loud, and that can't just be me. It's, like I said, it's the entire community that's got to be very vocal about these challenges, because I see them and I know that they are much bigger than just the handful of older adults who are 55 to 59 are experiencing and dealing with. Well, thank you for that question. Yes.
So the question, I think you just, from Beth's question, I think you just answered, but I want to acknowledge the question for those on the live streaming. How do we help make these findings known? So you just mentioned your road show. So I think you answered that one. But the second question is, what efforts are in motion for improving access to transportation?
That's a great question. So what things are in motion to improve transportation? So transportation's a difficult one. And the reason it is difficult is because how the funding comes in, it doesn't allow transportation providers to cross county lines. And so if I live in Marion County and my physician is in Hamilton County, I can't have the public funded transportation service take me point A to B and back. And so the discussions have to go to the source, to who is creating those funding mechanisms to start to really, again, advocate for those kinds of changes that allow us to service more individuals and to make sure that we can kind of close that transportation loop from point A to B and back. That's merely one specific thing. There are, again, most of these challenges that we deal with, one solution is not going to get it done. You have to be thinking about plan A, B, and C. And so plan A is you go to the source. Plan B is that you work locally within the framework to see how you might be able to revenue share. Are there opportunities that allow that cross-county intervention or engagement without having to drop a person off and be picked up by someone else or another provider? And so, you know, our transportation director, Karen Brooks, is always thinking about those things. We have begun having some conversations with Indigo and some other transportation providers. But at this point, I don't have a solid answer for how do we make that piece different. I can just say we are constantly talking about it and advocating for a better way to do transportation for our seniors. Yes.
So to extend that question, have the powers that be, have you guys thought about looking at other states who are doing that cross-county transportation? I mean, that's...
Yes, so that's a great question. So the follow-up question is, have we kind of looked at other states and what they're doing and seeing how it works there? Last year, I did sit on a transportation, it was a transportation webinar. I was a panelist, and it was something that US Aging was doing. So it was one of their conferences and I did this presentation, and I remember other states being represented on that, and it appeared to me, the sense that I got was that it's more common than we think. It's not a situation where this state does it differently. We all face the same kind of challenge. So while I'd love to be able to call my friends in Virginia or in Maryland or in Michigan, I already know what the answer is going to be. It's that, Tarek, we deal with the same challenges that you all do. So I appreciate that follow-up question. Cody?
What would you ask your private partners, Duet, your other partners that are directly under this umbrella to do with this information or work with you?
Yeah, so the question is, what would we here at Sakoa want our private partners or partners of ours to do with this valuable information? The first thing would be schedule time to discuss, right, these findings so that as we are talking advocacy, where you want to spend that effort and time, Cody, I would want to make sure you had the kinds of buzz terms that you need to be able to have that information resonate with elected officials in your district and with others, right? So I think it's the entire village. I appreciate that question. Yeah, we will talk. I will say, Cody, I want you to focus and push down on this with these elected officials, because I think you can get a lot more done, right, if you can commission advocacy networks more widespread than trying to do it on your own. We as an organization are not going to be able to change these kinds of challenges for our older adults on our own. It will take a very dialed in laser focus, right? And there's a reason why certain partners are here today, right? Bose Public Affairs is here today. That's by design. I want them here to hear the kinds of challenges that our seniors deal with, because they may already know and may already be thinking about, Tarek, you should talk to this individual about this, or you should talk to that individual about that. Yes, Kat.
So this has been fascinating, so thank you. But one of the things is we're talking a lot about, what can the state or the county do for our individuals. What I'm wondering is, what are we doing to help increase the sense of value for older citizens? So we know that that sense of connection and service to another increases our self-esteem. So what can we do to involve them more? Because that's going to improve, first it's going to drive a demand for some of the services that we need, but it will also improve that whole sense of physical health and mental well-being.
So the question has to do with how do we take this wonderful information and be able to begin thinking about it internally here at Sakoa on what things we can do to lift up, to make it more aware, to make that access more available to our seniors, to really create a better environment for our older adults. I'm paraphrasing, right? But I think that's kind of where you're going.
Also for them to participate, to give opportunities for seniors to give back, because that improves their sense of self-esteem. Yeah,
so I think the first thing that you have to do is really be, having conversations with them. I think that one way to kind of identify what our older adults truly think is to do annual consumer satisfaction surveys, which we do, right? So we always go to gain some insight from the populations we serve on how well we're doing, but most importantly, where are we missing the mark, right? Because that's far more important to how great we're doing. We love to hear that, but I can't do much with that. I really need to know what areas can we improve upon, right? And I think that it's a different mindset. We tend to stay so dialed into the work we do. I'm a social worker. I work in this department without really understanding that you have so much more to offer that older adult. In other words, what I'm suggesting is we have to go deeper in every interaction that we have with our seniors. It can't just be about, how's that person-centered care plan going for you? It's got to be about, I want to talk to you about volunteer opportunities. I want to talk to you about some health and wellness concepts. I want to talk to you about things like bingo size. I want to talk to you about getting involved in the church choir. It should be a very holistic approach and not focused exclusively on these check mark boxes that I've got to make sure I touch on each and every time. And I know that's a difficult one, Kathy, because we all have so much on our plates. But there's got to be a way for us to manage our time in a manner to be able to address some of those non-traditional needs that older adults have based on the interactions we have with them each and every day. So I think that's the second strategy, right? And I think it's consistent, right? You have to do it often and all the time, because those are really the only ways that their voices can be elevated. You know, older adults, they call me. I talk to our clients and I enjoy the stories, and you guys are doing great work. I love to hear that. But I always ask them, hey, what things can we improve on? What can we do differently, right? And then the third thing is, you know, to your point, Kathy, about not waiting on state and federal, right? For us here at Sakoa, we are all about creating opportunities that are better, that will derive into better outcomes for our consumers. Let me give you an example, and I talk about this a lot. Fee-for-service offerings, right? We are very dependent on state, federal resources, but there's a population out there in central Indiana that have the means to pay for a quality service and that will. Now you're doing something, because as you generate surplus, you reinvest it back into your mission, right? If transportation is a challenge, let's reinvest this surplus into transportation. So now these cross-county lines, they don't matter. You follow what I'm saying? That is how all community business organizations have got to start thinking. They can't wait for state, for the federal government to do it. It's going to take too long. We're talking about systematic changes. It's not going to happen overnight. And as an agency, we are not going to sit and wait. We are going to try and be as proactive as we can in creating a better path forward for our treasured older adults. I hope that answered your question. A long answer, but I hope it answered your question.
Well, it did. And as a follow-up, what I find interesting is the Flourish Department has just instituted a new position, the community health worker. And I'm thinking that would be a fascinating.
It is.
Yeah, for something for them to be able to do, to gather those resources so that we have that information for.
Absolutely is. There's a reason why we do a lot of these things, right? And I hope it's clearer now. For us, that does have an opportunity. It does create a different community kind of opportunity for our older adults. Go ahead, Donata.
So it's more of a comment than a question. I'm like sitting here and I wanted to be quiet, but I can't.
We know that's not going to happen, G.
I'm moving, I'm like, and clearly I work here. I can say under your leadership, Sakoa is fostering like innovation and thinking of creative ways. So as you all are asking, like, what is Sakoa doing? We're doing some very creative and innovative things. So we have a venture studio that's got things that are just bubbling up. I probably can't talk about it, so I'm just going to say there's some things that are happening that kind of address some of the stuff that's going on with the CASOA survey. And these things were happening even before that because we have those interactions with the people. So we kind of understand a little bit about what's going on. We're having those conversations. So when you ask, what is Sakoa doing? Please believe we are working hard and intensely. And yeah, there are just some things that I know about but can't share. And so it's just like I'm sitting here like, just be confident that Sakoa is moving on the information that's been provided. And like I said, even before that, because we kind of had a sense of some things that were going on, and we've just been pushed to be more innovative and, you know, thinking outside of the box on how we can
not only just depend, like, we don't want to depend on like state or federal funding, but how can we diversify the funds that we bring in so that we can truly help the community that we work for? So I'm going to be quiet now.
Thank you, Donata. Oh, so Donata Duffy's one of our directors here at Sakoa, and she was sharing a little more information about some of the very specific things that we are doing at Sakoa through our venture studio, through innovation and data and research. There's a lot going on. Some we can't really talk a whole lot about, but the message that she really wanted to resonate for everyone is that we absolutely understand and know our role in the community and are working tirelessly to really begin making some impacts for our older adults.
Go ahead. I think she's had her hand up on the.
Go ahead.
I'm not
You are today.
Okay, I'm actually a part of the foster grandparent program.
Oh, yes. Wonderful volunteer
I
program.
don't know if I'm able to say this or not, but actually we are having a senior expo health fair on Saturday. And I don't know if Sakoa knows about it or if you guys would be invited and like to come. Or
When is this?
it's on Saturday. It's at the Edna Martin Legacy Center.
Oh.
Saturday, like the day after tomorrow, Saturday.
You don't want anything today.
Oh, touche. I like her. I like her.
We're offering like free monograms for the elderly, cholesterol checks, COVID giveaways. Our foster grandparent program is going to have a table. We're giving away a lot of things. And I would just like for you guys to get it out to as many seniors as you can.
Absolutely. Is there maybe, oh, okay, good. So Cassie's putting it on our social media. She's program coordinator from Foster Grandparent Program, which is a wonderful volunteer program. I actually oversaw and sponsored it at my nonprofit in Michigan. So we were the sponsor from the Corporation National Community Service. And they are having a health fair this Saturday. Is at the Edna Martin
Legacy Center.
Edna Martin Legacy Center.
2259 North Ralston Avenue.
2259 North Ralston Avenue. And what are the times?
It's from 10 until 2.
From 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. So if you're able to attend, or you're able to inform all your older adult consumers, Sakoa people, we got a ton of them, right? So maybe we send this to them and let them know of this opportunity, because there will be free health screenings and things of that nature taking place. Perfect.
Okay, but we also are offering transportation.
Oh, very good. Offering transportation as well. Sorry, I'm doing that for our virtual folks. Mark.
So you mentioned COVID several times, and with these improvements that we're working on. One of the things I found in assisted livings when I'm going to, working from home, the big thing that we ran into was the clients were suffering mentally, and that related to physical down issues as well. And with that in mind, are we working to promote programs that will keep that from happening in the future, so that we know they're in this situation? Is there some service we can provide to help them keep their mental acuity, and in return help them keep their health up?
So the question that Mark has asked has to do with mental health and the impacts that it has on older adults and their physical health. Particularly through, public health emergency, and probably still exists today. And, the behavioral health and wellness system here in Indiana, I've really just started to begin digging into it. I ran a program that was a senior behavioral health and wellness supports coordination program at my former place. And so I know that a model specific to that is not in existence for that older adult population, Mark. There is an opportunity, obviously, for us to write a white paper and present that to the state to see if there's any interest there. But as I've talked to some folks, it's become apparent that, we probably could play in that space to really help overall health outcomes. And the reason, again, and I'll mention this again, in this Managed Long-Term Services and Supports program, behavioral health is a component and a service that the Division of Aging and FSSA has put into the available service offerings. So it's good to say it's coming. I don't know what that service will look like. We'll learn more as more of the service definitions and how they envision what they envision us doing, because you're 100% correct that depression, right, oftentimes is going to lead to poorer physical health. We know that. And yeah, you're right. We need to do something about it. So love to maybe think about how we might be able to start doing some things prior to the implementation of MLTSS, which won't be until first quarter of calendar year 2024. So we can absolutely experiment with things, learn what we can learn, iterate. We can iterate and prototype different things to begin to see what impacts we're making. So I appreciate that question and the comments. Thank you.
Tarek.
Yes, sir.
Well, maybe one more question here we can answer quickly,
Misty.
and then, yeah.
Kind of a two-parter, but you mentioned noting our trends against national trends, but is there anything that's statewide or compare where we're at within the state? And then secondly, knowing that you are advocating for our service area, do you believe that Saccola has any kind of statewide impact with our advocacy? Or are there any plans, or how would we get there?
Try to set me up, ain't you? So yes, there is information that is more focused on the entire state. What we presented today obviously was just for our 8-county region, but all the area agencies on aging have a similar report and findings that we absolutely could look at. As it relates to the Sakoa statewide, yeah, you guys know this. The staff here know I've talked about this. I do believe that Sakoa can play a larger role across the state instead of just in our 8-county region. And the reason I feel that way is because, when you've got so many organizations doing the same kinds of things and it's not a standardized process, the opportunity for, variance goes up exponentially. And so you really can't see the impacts that you're making. So yeah, I could see us attempting and moving more into that statewide lens versus just staying controlled in our 8-county region. Second part?
It was, so more just to clarify that, do you feel like your advocacy in our service area would trickle down to kind of incorporate, like, I come from a very rural area, public transportation, affordable housing is not available. So do you feel like the advocacy we do in our area is going to be strong enough to encourage other areas?
Yeah, so the question has to do with advocacy, elected officials, different parts of the state. My answer is yes, Misty. And the reason I can say that is I have other AAA CEOs scheduling time with me to come here and sit down and talk about many different things. I see our advocacy efforts touching them, their areas, and hopefully making change more widespread than just in one area. So, and I can say that because Ryan Keller, who's our Thrive Central CEO, is coming here next week. He and John Ford are coming here for a meeting with me next week about some of these things. Yes.
Last question, just maybe a quick bullet points on this one. What private pay services are you going to be offering? We'll wrap it up with that.
So the question is, what private pay? You give me that one last.
I'll just get quick. Someone asked on our live stream.
So what private pay services are we offering? So, I've always believed and firmly believe that if a state or federal entity will pay you money to do something, you could take that, develop it in a fee-for-service offering, and take it to the market. So if we're doing case management, I could see case management, private pay being a thing here at Sakoa. Transportation, home repairs and modifications, again, same opportunity to have private pay. So across our service lines, we know that there are private pay opportunities. If you are providing meals, there are some private pay opportunities there through nutrition therapy and things of that nature. And then, our private pay work is more social enterprise driven as well. As Donata mentioned, our venture studio is constantly creating companies to creatively respond to challenges that CBOs face. And so currently there's one that's already out there. There are 3 additional concepts in development. And so that's how we will diversify our revenue to have the ability to reinvest it into our mission to affect and impact lives in a much deeper way.
I'm going to have to wrap it up.
Yep, so we are at time. I do thank all of you for joining, and I'm going to turn it back over to Steve.
Great job, wonderful job. Thank you, Tarek. I appreciate that information. So if you want to know more about the CASOA results that were presented today, they're posted on Sakoa's website under the news and events and then research page. And you can find there the county level results and some questions that were asked for today and the reports of findings for the entire state. A video of today's presentation will be available later on our website at sakoa.org. So look for an email with the link to come. And we also will be sharing the link to this video that was done today on social media. So please like and share with others, all right? That would be wonderful. So thanks again for your time and your kind attention. And we hope to see you at our next Envision Lecture series. Thank you.